The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. I can't even get everybody out of my mouth. I'm so tired after this weekend. Welcome back to another edition of the Phixated Podcast. I am your host, Mike Azzalina, and I am joined by the dancing machine himself, Chris Regensburg. Regs, long time no see, buddy.
I know.
Well, what a weekend we had.
See, and we talked about this. One of the best things about starting this is that it gets us to talk like every week, which is awesome because there had been a time where we were doing pretty good with the seven group of us from college. We were getting together almost every year for 3 or 4 years there. Yeah. And then obviously COVID happened, which makes everything tough. So it's been a while, but starting this with like you and then Banks on the, two-way miss, just another positive. And then we got to see most of the boys on Friday, which was amazing.
And we'll get into what that was about and why Regz is a dancing machine. But before we do, because we didn't meet each other last week, so we're planning on doing a show tonight, and then more than likely another one on Thursday night, like our normal night.
Yep.
But Regz, Warrior update.
So unfortunately, the rain hit us last week, so we were unable to play our games, and we have not made them up yet. So we had 2 practices. Just trying to do some simulated games, have our pitchers pitch, have our guys hit against real pitching. So no update, record wise, we're right now a game back of first place, 6-2 in the league. Nice. Doing well. This coming week is the older 8U team in our same travel program. So it'll be interesting to see if we can steal one from them. I heard they're playing pretty well this year. Their kids are kind of, getting to that age where they're starting to figure it out. So we'll see how it goes this weekend. We'll have, big update coming probably on, Thursday if we sneak in a game on Wednesday, and then definitely next week.
That's awesome. Can't wait. Can we call it the new rivalry? I
mean, maybe because I don't think the other coach listens to this, but we had a scrimmage with them. Some of the umpire group that we work with wanted to get some of their newer umpires some practice. Good idea. They offered some free umpires to me and the other coach if we want to get a scrimmage, and I said absolutely. So during the scrimmage, one of their kids is standing 6 inches in front of the pitcher's mound while he's pitching. I don't notice it because I'm on the bench, so the perspective's off. But my third base coach ends up saying something to him, and their head coach gets all pissy about it for some reason. We're in the same program, guys. He was just trying to get the kid to stand where he should, so he just learns that he needs to pay attention to it. It's not that big of a deal. He didn't he was just he just told the kid, he's hey buddy, just back up a little bit so you're on that mound. The other coach got pissy about it for some reason. I don't know. He's just, some people are weird about this stuff, and I'm not I'm not about this to do for pettiness and for a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds to be pissy about stupid crap. I don't want to say crap, but there's a different word I'd like to use. So, it is what it is. Me and the guy are friendly enough, but I'd like to beat them. That's for sure. Cause they're ahead of us in the standings by 1 game. So I'd like to beat them. That's for sure. If we can steal one, I'll be pretty happy. When we have our good pitchers going, if we can take that one, it'll be good.
I agree with you. I've seen a lot of videos recently floating around social media of.
Did you see that John Boy Media one of that umpire who forfeited the game because
This is
the crap I'm talking about. The
this guy
could be
yelling
an entire podcast.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but just your example right there. I mean, I remember playing I don't know if it was quite the age group that you're at that I'm thinking back to, but maybe when I was 11, 12, the majors, they called them then. I remember scrimmaging and other coaches from our little league program, saying stuff to us or to the other kids, on the other teams, just basically hey, you might want to try this, or
right.
you know, I noticed this when you were hitting or when you were pitching, and like you said, same program. You know, like it doesn't.
That's what like it's like that's what
doesn't have to be a thing.
That's what you're going to be pissy about. Like he's supposed to stand on the effing mound. Like we weren't calling balks like on an 8-year-old kid. You know what I mean? Like we weren't like
I don't know.
It was something stupid.
It's wild. It's wild. It doesn't whatever. I mean, have we talked since? No, we haven't since did we talk after we walked off a team?
No.
Oh my gosh. Have we had 2 games?
I think
then?
Yeah. We did
wow, I guess we have because we had a Tuesday night podcast.
Yep.
All right, so real quickly, we played. I think I told you that this was a team who beat us.
You did say that you had one coming up.
Yeah, it was a team who beat us, and they I remember saying that team's not better than us.
Mm-hmm.
We are just a better team than them. So we played them 2 weeks ago, and the thing about this league, Regz, is if we hit a home run, okay, in say the first inning, then we cannot hit another home run until that team hits one.
So you have to stop at third?
So no, if you hit a home run over the fence, it's an out. Yeah, it's an out.
Out?
It's an out. It's an out.
That's the
if you hit a home run over the
dumbest
fence.
thing I've ever heard.
Correct. So you can go one up, but if you're one up, you cannot hit a home run.
How can you make a home run an out?
It totally changes the complexion of
everything.
Everything offensively. So we hit a home run pretty early in the game. We were winning. I forget what the score was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was early in the game, and we could not hit one the rest of the game. So we have a couple of guys who their swing changes entirely.
Yeah, right.
Big spots, and so eventually I think we were up 1 or 2 going into the top of the 7th, and they took a they just started pouring on runs, and a guy comes up in a big spot and hits a 3-run home run, and it put them up 6. So again, I'm standing out in the outfield, and I'm like, this freaking team, they're not better than us. This, if we could play them at a different field because there is a field without a fence, and we are unbeatable there because you just can't defend us.
Yeah, and it runs.
Yeah, we just hit forever. Everywhere.
Right.
So we're pretty ticked coming back into the dugout, and I wouldn't be able to give you the play-by-play, but we ended up. I was the winning run, and we were. I forget. I don't think there was anybody out when I hit.
Okay.
I think we had gotten on a pretty good run, and I hit a single that put us within a run, and then somehow we had second and third, with I apologize. We had the bases loaded.
Okay.
And you remember Paige from Paige Tanner? So she plays for us.
Awesome.
And she hit a sacrifice fly that tied the game. So I second and third then. And with 2 there were 2 outs. Somewhere in there they snuck another out. Gotcha. And I don't remember how it happened. But our arguably our best guy is hitting. He's 25 years old. He's unreal good. And the thing about slow pitch softball is you don't want to take a walk. You're not there to take a walk. But I mean, if the ball's not even close, you're not going to swing.
Yeah.
So he ends up walking, which in this league, it's 2 bases for a guy to walk. It actually, that rule I'm okay with because it keeps you from walking guys intentionally to pitch to girls because you have to alternate guy, girl throughout the batting order. And so we end up walking him off. We score 7 runs in the bottom of the 7th to walk him off. And as we're shaking hands in the line, the one dude, so bitter, says to the guy as he walks by him, he's like, "Nice walk." And you're just I mean, you just gave up 7 unanswered. What do you... I mean, it was the only walk in the inning. We had, at one point, we had 6 consecutive base hits. What are we talking about here, man? What are we talking about? Ridiculous.
People suck.
Oh, it was just so annoying. So that was that week. And then last week we played a team who last year asked us if we'd be willing to move a game time because they
Mhm.
didn't have enough players. Like, all right, fine, whatever. It's the last game of the season. We were like, that's totally cool. We already knew what our seed in the playoffs was going to be. So we show up at the field and we're looking at this team and we're like, this isn't the same team we saw play a couple weeks ago. They brought like all these like ringers to the field, like all these ringers. So they end up at that last game of the season beating the crap out of us. They were running it up. It was like 16-1. And they were just running it up. And I remember Cop saying something to their like captain at the end of the game. Like, look, I was cool changing the game for you, but don't expect me to do that again if that's the way you're going to treat us. Like, you know what I mean? So we played them last week and we beat the crap out of them. I mean, it was like revenge game. And here's the thing. And I don't say this from like, a place of like ego or anything like that. This is just truth. It's something that we talked about after the game. It might've been the first time I've gone hitless in like 2 or 3 years in a game. And those games, when we thought back to like times that I didn't have hits, we never won. That's how good I think our team is this year. Like we still scored like almost 20 runs and I didn't even have a hit.
There you go.
As the leadoff guy. So like our girls were really good the other night too. So yeah. So I don't know who we play this week. I'm kind of thinking this is like a pretty easy, should be a smooth game for us. But yeah, 4-0. First time we would be 5-0 in like 4 seasons if we win on Wednesday night. Yeah, it's big for the brand.
That's
big
right.
For the brand.
Of course.
So, wedding this weekend, man. What a good time.
It was a good time.
Congratulations to Steiny Boo.
I'm not. Yes, congratulations to Stein and Becky. It was a rough time for a wedding. Friday at 4:30.
Sure was.
It's
on Friday the 13th.
It's
it's a really difficult, challenging
to get
moment.
to when you most people who have jobs don't get done working till 5.
Yeah.
But everyone made it somehow, my wife included, hung in there in the traffic.
Our buddy Josh too, who's
Josh,
a lawyer in New York who I don't know how he got there.
I don't know either. With the traffic he was talking about, I'm not sure how he didn't just.
He texted us at like 5:00 and said he was still in East Village.
Yeah, I mean, just wild.
Unbelievable job by him to get there. Just defining friendship, Josh Ebersol. Defining friendship. I mean, but we were in the same boat, Regz, Andrea and I. We left here at like 1:30 and still almost. I think we got to the venue at 4:25. We walked in,
and luckily
the rain
kind
of held back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we all made it. Man. We all made it.
Yeah,
is the moral of the story.
So for those of you, I mean, Regz kind of alluded to this earlier in the show, and we won't live here for super long. But there were a group of 7 of us in college. 6 basketball players and a random guy who clung to the basketball players. That'd be me. But we lived, we were all except Rye lived in the same dorm freshman and sophomore year. Lived on the same floor sophomore year. I basically, I lived in Phil and Josh's room freshman year and almost lived in your room for most of sophomore year. And obviously like the 6 of us were very close. You and Stein, me and Banks, Josh and Phil, all 6 of us very close. Moved into a house our junior and senior years together. You Banks and Steiny on one side, me, Rye, Jay, and Phil on the other side. But hard pressed to find, people who spent as much time together as we did over the course of our 4 years. And once we graduated, we did our very best to make sure that was like continued on the way. Still getting together once a year, usually in the summer or around like Labor Day weekend. Kind of watched everybody go through all the good times and the bad times of life, right? Like we've seen pretty much it all for all 7 of us at some point. And this was the first time in almost 3 years since we've almost all been together. Rye, sorry that you missed it. We missed you.
We did.
But definitely a great night. It was great to see Stein's family, who we haven't seen since like 2000. I haven't seen Daddy-O since we were in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's I'm probably the same. I don't know if I've seen him another time. I feel like randomly he was in Virginia when I was. During that time, I was literally going down to Richmond like once a week because I had just nothing else to do in New Jersey. That's a whole story for a different kind of podcast, not this one. But it was great to see him. It was great to see his mom, who I haven't seen in forever.
I know. And Robbie Bob.
Yep. It was great to see everybody. And again, you talked about it. It's like we've had to miss the past couple years with the boys. And we were doing well. We were doing really well about really getting together and carving out that time. And it was funny. It's cheesy, but Phil summed it up pretty good. He's like, now that we're older, like when Stein and Becky had their first dance, like you got like, I don't know about you, but like I got like emotional.
Yep.
It was weird. It's like watching your, your brother, get married. It's like that sort of emotion. And we all kind of looked at each other like, oh, good. They like, you guys all feel that too, right? It's not just, it's Phil, of course, is the one to say it because Phil always is the one to say it. But we looked around and we were like, oh man, like good thing you guys are feeling that too, because I didn't know if I was the only one or not. And listen, I'm sure we'll bring back that Labor Day stuff because usually somebody will spark the text conversation and, in September or sometime, and we'll get it back going now that COVID's kind of, died down, at least that you can get together with some people. But
go for it.
No, I was just saying like, and to see Josh, so I walked up to the parking lot because my wife got there and I just wanted to go get her so she knew where to go. And sure enough, he pulls in right behind her and pulls up and like, Jesus, I haven't seen that guy in forever. And I miss him because I love that kid. So great to see him and Phil, who I hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah, I just, a couple of things that branch off of there. During the ceremony, I leaned over to Banksy, shout out to a miss, and I was like, "Hey, is Stein's sister in the wedding?" And he goes, I don't think I would be able to pick her out of a lineup.
Yeah.
And I was like, same. I mean, it's been 13 years since we saw her. I mean, so, we were laughing, afterward. He goes, you remember we walked her to school when we were in California? I was like, yeah, I remember. We walked her to like first grade or whatever it was.
Yep.
And sure enough, she was there and she's 20 and I could not get over it. I just couldn't. And you said it at the wedding. You're like, see, that's the stuff that makes you feel old. Like it's that.
I'm telling you,
like seeing her now and talking to her and like, it's crazy.
It's nuts. And for our age, I don't know what it is about living where we live, but with our son who's about to turn 8, we are the youngest parents of an 8-year-old around here. I don't know why. I don't think that's the case like nationally, but like just in our little space here in Maryland, most of the parents are in their 40s, even if it's not their youngest, child who's Cole's age. And so I don't feel that old when I'm around a bunch of, 42. Some guys are 50 and have a kid, my kid's age. But when you tell me that Stein's sister is 20 and in college and not 6 like the last time I saw her, I feel very old when stuff like that happens. Also, when you tell me that my youngest brother is 30, then I feel very old. There's a couple things that's, hit right in that sweet spot.
For sure. I mean, this is my third group of kids graduating that I taught this year. So it's those things that get you. Obviously, you just said something there that sparked, and I kind of lost it. But I'll jump back to it if it comes back to my head. But I think I said it when I posted a bunch of pictures to social media. Oh, this is what I wanted to say before I do. Ryan Stein with the best man speech of my life, by the way. Like, and the other thing,
you called
it. I knew he was going to do it. I knew he was going to do it. This guy absolutely was going to do a rap. You see those things on social media all the time. And I told Andrea that if there was going to be any best man that ever does that live for us to see, it would be Ryan Stein. And he came through. Here's the other thing I wanted to say. very underrated part of the evening was seeing Mark Schmidt.
It was.
That's
true.
We have not mentioned Mark yet. We, as one of our roommates, he might as well have been. We joked about this with his new fiance.
He was
Kristen.
a very loyal listener to the Phixated Pod.
Mark is or Kristen?
Schmidt. I mean, if Kristen is, great.
Yeah, right. But Schmidt, like, just seeing Schmidt, the guy should have paid rent first and foremost. We joked about that.
Absolutely.
He basically lived at our house with us. But like, talk about one of the coolest, kindest, and like most down to earth dudes that you'll ever meet. That guy barely said anything in college, but when he did, like, it was always hysterical, it was always on point, and it always mattered. So like seeing Schmidt. Well, I haven't seen Schmidt probably since I got married.
Likewise,
I think it's been since 2013, and I texted him. He texted me yesterday, and said something, and I told Andrea, like, I cannot go that long without seeing Mark Schmidt.
He texted me too, asking how my son's t-ball game went, because I had told him that's why we were going back home, because I was coaching my middle son.
So that's totally Schmidt.
So I've luckily seen him on FaceTime, because every time Stein and Schmidt get together, they drunk FaceTime me.
And I don't pick up.
And I always pick up because it's just the most fun. When Stein is that hammered and Schmidt's next to him, it's the most fun.
Well,
Schmidt
said I have to join next time. So
just think about that kid in the hallway that we created in that dorm room sophomore year.
Yeah.
First time, like, right, freshman in college, coming to live in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. And you get in this hallway full of us 6 goofballs and the entire freshman class of the baseball team, taking up 80% of the rooms on that hallway.
Yeah.
And night 1, you get my goofy ass and Stein going around banging on doors to just, for whatever reason, Stein wanted to introduce himself.
He wanted to welcome everybody to the show.
Himself.
I only joined you for like 2 rooms, and that happened to be one of them.
We went to every single one that we didn't know who was in it. And like this kid, somehow, who knows why, it clicked, man. And there he was for the next 3 years. Schmidt was by our side on basketball teams, on softball teams, on flag football teams.
In the cafeteria.
Living in our house practically, right? First one to come over for parties, all that stuff, right? Never a day went by that we didn't see Schmitty. So good for that kid for hanging in there. And, again, just I can't even imagine that experience. Can you imagine if that happened to you day 1 freshman year?
Yeah.
And Matt Stein's the one to just burst into your room and start talking to you.
And you know what? I'm so proud of him. Okay. Oh, there goes the light. We knew that was happening. So proud of him too. Kristen seems like a lovely girl. So congratulations to them. And one last thing to wrap it up, because you mentioned it before. I think when you said, Phil saying like, oh my gosh, that was awesome after the dance. Like, how cool is this? I said this in a couple of social media posts that like, I had this moment when he finished the dance, and I kind of just glanced around our table real quickly, and I thought to myself, gosh, I'm just like such a lucky dude. Like, there are people in this world that go through life maybe without having one very close friend, like one person that they consider to be like their go-to. And here I am, and I got 6. And again, Ryan not being there, it doesn't matter. Like, I know he's still a go-to, and I know like it's been a while since I talked to Schmidt, but it was basically like I'd seen him yesterday. Yeah. And to me that defines a good friendship, and we're so lucky to have each other. I'm glad it was Steiny's wedding that helped us realize it, and I think it is our age, because I don't know that I would have felt that way. When the rest of us were getting married, we were still pretty young, still right out of college. Yep. Like, what mattered to us then was like how many drinks we were gonna have, and what the after party was gonna look like, and all of that was like a sideshow to, the happiness that we all felt for Matt and and for Becky and their families, and I think, we're different people now, but we're the same. Like Andrea said to us as we were leaving, as we were driving, she said to me as I was driving away from the venue on Saturday morning, she loves when she gets a chance to see us all together, because it's like the way we talk to each other, the way we laugh with each other, just the overall like interactions that we have throughout a night, even when we walk away from each other, but there's one group over here, like there's no judgment, there's no jealousy, there's never any of that. It's just 7 guys who love to be around each other and just, enjoy each other's accomplishments, happiness, and joys. And so, thanks for being part of that for me, man. And we're going to make sure the others listen to at least this part.
We're going to send it to them just to listen to the first,
just so that they listen to the first 15 minutes, get through the softball conversation, and just listen to.
Angela said the exact same thing as we were driving away that night. She was like, do you ever think about how weird it is if you had never gone to E-Town? Like, we'd never know these people existed, right? You had just gone about your life.
Yep.
I'm sure found other friends, right? Done whatever. But it really hit me that, like, holy shit, like, I can't imagine a world like that, to be quite honest. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love is that it's exactly what you said. It's that we could all be in 3 separate conversations, right? Like 2 of us each. And if we just said, like, everyone stop and change who you're talking to, what we're talking about might change, but the dynamic wouldn't.
Right.
We all like bounce around to each other and we all treat each other the same. And yeah, like maybe, me and Banks and you talk a little bit more than like me and Phil and Josh, but like the way we talk to each other wouldn't change no matter what of the 7 of us is talking at any given time. Yeah. And and you're exactly right. There's not a ton of people in this world who, if I got a phone call that said, Regz, I need your help and I'm X place, pick a place. I don't care where it is. Just pick a place that I would drop everything I was doing to go and do what I had to do.
Yeah.
And to have that many, is I constantly think about how lucky we were to like that it all kind of cosmically worked out that way.
I mean, yeah. And again, I still think we need to do a show with all 7 somehow. I don't know how we managed to do it.
We're gonna
but
do
it. I feel like there's probably a conversation in there of how it all came to light. Like I know how I got brought into the group, but like I think there's probably a conversation of like all of it.
Dude,
like
if you had to pick someone who's not like who doesn't belong, like I'm putting my hand up. Here, who's the dude who's never partied in his life coming to Elizabethtown to like be with all the cool kids from high school? Like, not this guy. I was a dork and a half in high school. I didn't get invited to parties. I didn't go to parties. I didn't want to go, but I also no one was asking. And like to jump in with you 6 who were like all the cool kids from high school, like Banks is a 1,000-point basketball scorer. Stein has his older brother, right? So he just follows his legacy and his own guy. You're the stud athlete, like Phil's runs that damn town. And Josh is the freaking high school quarterback, right? And Ryan looks like he does. So of course he's cool in high school. So it's like which one of these things doesn't belong in the Sesame Street song? Like, Regz, put your hand up, man. Like I constantly thought about that during college. I was like, man, am I lucky to be hanging around with these guys? Because if I didn't meet you guys, I'd be sitting in a dorm room like freaking Frotch or somebody doing nothing and just wallowing.
Oh my God, I totally disagree with everything you just said, but it might be the best rant that's ever happened on this show. I totally disagree with all of it. I mean, I don't disagree with the way you described the other guys at all.
That's why you're a good friend, but it's absolutely 100% true. That's why you're a very good person and a good friend, but it's 1,000% true. And I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. I just consider myself very lucky. And I will forever.
I do too.
I will forever.
I do too. I think if you ask the other 5 guys the same question, they would say the same thing. I think we all feel lucky for different reasons that we ended up, in that group. But I think there's probably a bunch of people that are like, all right, guys, enough with the love fest.
Yeah, it's been a half hour. Yep. Okay.
Let's move on. No, it's fine.
We haven't been together in a long time, and we had to talk about it. And this
look,
is
there's
our
a
platform.
fast forward. There's a fast forward button. Hit it.
We told you when we started this podcast that this is going to be friends talking, and this is what you're getting.
So here it is. I mean, you can hit the fast forward button. I mean, I wouldn't at this point because we're about to start talking about the Sixers.
You shouldn't, because that was gold. That was gold, by the way.
That was gold, and we're gonna make them all listen to it too.
Yes, we are.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We love you. This episode is going to be called, I hope you guys enjoyed that.
It's going to be called Summit Street is what it's going to be called.
Well, that's got to be the one when we have.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be.
That's
you know what? I think it lends itself to the whole audience because I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I hope you can all think of the people in your lives who make you feel lucky, the way that those 5 guys, and the way Regz, has imprinted my life and impacted my life. Like I said, their joys, their happiness, their struggles all impact me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud of every single one of them for everything that they've accomplished and continue to accomplish. So I hope, everybody has people that make them feel that way and that they cling to the way that I cling to these 6, because I mean, they're when you have a best friend, their lives are your life.
We could have a whole damn podcast called Summit Street. Maybe that's the next podcast addition to the Birdies and Beer Network.
That would be interesting.
We're going to call it Summit Street, and every week it's a different couple
duo.
It's a different duo. Yep, exactly. And we
that would be really interesting.
That could last forever. You just get any 2 of us on a podcast to talk for an hour. It'd be done. All right. I'm writing that down.
Write that down.
I'm writing it down.
Write that down. That could be a real blast.
You talk about something that'll hit.
All right, write it down.
I'm writing it down. I got a post-it note.
The Birdies and Beer family extends itself to Summit. Oh man, so many ideas going through my head. But let's talk about the Sixers.
I'm literally writing a post-it note. I'm not forgetting.
I have so many ideas. I kind of want this episode to end here so we can just
talk about spitball. I love it.
I'm not going to go to bed till midnight tonight.
You're just going to be sending me ideas for this, and I cannot wait to get all those text messages. I cannot wait. All right, I guess we have to talk about the Sixers now.
I mean, we got to talk about the Sixers. So obviously the Sixers, season ended on Thursday night. I don't think anybody really expected an NBA championship this year. I really don't think. I know I didn't expect one. You always hope that there are things that happen, especially when Joe, when the ligament in the hand went, and then the face fracture and the concussion. Like, at what point was enough going to be enough? And it ended up being Game 6 against the Heat at home in a blowout, which is just disgusting.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of layers here to peel. Probably, at some point we're just going to have a Sixers episode. Where we just kind of
talk about off season and all that stuff.
Yeah, off season, peel apart the process. Kind of talk about where they're heading next. There's room for that. So, but I think I just want to spend a few minutes here tonight, like, why? Like, the Heat aren't Regz. They're just not a great team. Like, I look at that team and I'm like, where, right? And I think a healthy Joel. And they win that series. I firmly believe that. I really do. I firmly believe with Joel at full health, they win the series. But they didn't. He wasn't. So, you got to toss that out the window. So why this group? Why was it this group, in your opinion? I know I have my thoughts, and I'll get to them after you answer this. Why was it this group that gave them so much trouble?
Mine's a one-word answer. Effort. Mm-hmm. Watch those last 2 games and tell me it's any different.
Yeah. I think, you watch a guy like PJ Tucker, who's 37 years old.
Again, a guy who perfectly knows how to keep impacting a basketball game because he tosses his ego aside. Mm-hmm. He doesn't say, "Oh, I'm PJ Tucker. I've done this, and this in my career." Right? Yeah. And PJ's not an all-time player, but he's been a very good player for a long time.
He's obnoxious defensively.
And that's what I mean.
He's like a 3-and-D dream.
But he used to be, he could score in his day, right? He was a good
he
player.
Moves well without the ball. We saw that in the final quarter of Game 6.
Just take that guy. And I know this comparison isn't going to make some people happy because it's kind of wild. But take a guy like that who has completely put his ego aside and said, I can still contribute to basketball games, to high-level playoff basketball games, in these ways. And maybe it's 3 and when it used to be 7 ways, right? And now it's only 3. But I'm going to try my absolute ass off at these 3 things. And then look at a guy like James Harden who says, I can't put my ego aside. I used to be this guy and my mind still tells me I am. And when I can't be it, I'm done. I'm not going to be someone different, and I'm not going to try my best at these other different things because I don't want to.
Yeah, I think, man, I said to you when they first got James Harden that there's no version of James Harden that could be worse than the version of Ben Simmons that they got in Game 7.
Almost got it.
He was a goose egg. And he had 2 consecutive major turnovers going into the fourth quarter of that game.
Yeah.
And, they were still kind of hanging. If they went on like a 6-0 run right away, it would have been like a 7-point game.
Yeah.
And he comes out and Maxey he's not looking when Maxey tries to pass a ball to him at half court. And then coming back down, he's trying to handle too much and they just keep collapsing on him and he turns it over again for an easy bucket. And before you know it, they're down 17, 18 points again. And, at that point, the air came out of the stadium. That was it.
Yeah.
So, I like what you're saying about PJ Tucker. I think that what the Heat had, and effort that's very fair. It was going to be one of the things I talked about. I think what allows them to give so much effort is their depth. I mean, it's a never ending rollout of guys. I mean, they didn't even they have a $90 million player that played like 6 minutes the whole series.
But do you know why the depth plays that hard? Because their absolute best player plays that hard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Jimmy Butler, and I wanted to ask you about him, so I'm glad you brought him up. He absolutely killed us this series, which you knew was going to happen.
And walked out of the tunnel saying, Tobias Harris over me, huh?
And there were 2 comments I wanted to ask you about, okay? The first one was when he talked about how he wished he was still playing with Joel Embiid. That was like, whoa, hello. That was really interesting to me. The second being, look, I've killed Toby on this show, but I also think Toby had some games in the playoffs that
he did. Yeah.
I
wasn't using that as a criticism of him.
I know. I get why Jimmy says it, but in my head, it wasn't Jimmy or Toby necessarily. I think the choice was Jimmy or Ben.
Yeah, it was.
At the end of the day, yes, they gave Toby the max contract because they had to give someone the max. They couldn't have both of those guys be acquired in one season and not one of them stay. Ultimately, so they chose between if it wasn't going to be Ben, then they probably would have traded Ben at that point for somebody else. I don't know. Maybe it would have been like a Devin Booker at that point, which the Sixers would have absolutely. I think the Suns would have taken it then. I think the Sixers would have be thrilled with it now. Booker, Butler, and Embiid. Hindsight again being 2020. Yeah, right. But I mean, when you think about it, and then Toby walks, and you're fine, or you sign and trade like you did with Jimmy, and you're fine. But at that point, the Sixers were still hoping they could build around Joe and Ben, and that would be their decade-long run, and it blew up in their faces. And I'm sure if they could go back and do it again, it'd be Jimmy Butler. I'm sure it would, but it's not Toby's fault.
No,
right?
No, it's not. So here's the couple of takeaways that I'm taking from this series overall. You're absolutely right. A 100% healthy Joel Embiid makes this an absolute Game 7, and at that point, it's anybody's ball game. So I 1,000% agree with that. He was not himself, and who would expect him to be after the injuries he suffered? It's unbelievable that he even came back in the first place. I don't know of many who would, to be quite honest. But I think the 2 things I am taking away from this is, and they're both like 1A, 1B, so I don't want to put one ahead of the other because I really haven't figured that out in my own head. But one is, does Joel's leadership style change? And he even mentioned it. He said, we lacked effort and we lacked the will to win. And I think he said that sort of starts with him, despite whatever injuries he might be happening. And this is going to be me very biased to my favorite player of all time, who was Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan is that guy because he would not allow his teams to lose. And he wouldn't allow this sort of effort. Like this level of effort was not acceptable on a team for Michael Jordan, or even a Kobe Bryant, right? Like pick a Kobe Bryant, I'm sure a Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, right? This level of effort would not stand. So I wonder how Joel's leadership might change. And then number 2, at some point, I don't know how best to say this, but like, can our front office just be smarter? Like, at some point, there's enough evidence in this world and in the NBA sphere to know what guys try their ass off. And I'm not saying take an underskilled player just because he tries really hard. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is an entire level of the NBA. Just call it, I'm using air quotes for the people listening. Just call it role players. There's an entire swath of the NBA of role players who you need not only to survive the regular season, but to also complement your stars and be able to come into playoff games for the 10, 15 minutes that your stars are not on the floor. And at some point, I don't know why, and I'm not just grouping the Sixers in this, but I don't know why most NBA franchises are bad at realizing who those guys are. Like you talked about the depth of the Heat. I don't know if you could say that the bench players of the Heat are that much better than the bench players of the Sixers. Again, Danny Green got hurt. Korkmaz is not the best. George Niang, Paul Reed, like guys like that. Like, okay, fine. But again, that's that like role player category. Like who has ever heard of that Strauss guy? For Miami, was it Strauss, right? Like, who's ever heard of that guy?
Max Strauss.
Yeah. Who's ever heard of that? That's like a video game character, Max Strauss. That's like a villain in a Die Hard movie. That's not an NBA basketball player.
You know what? Just turn the episode off now. You've had 2 absolute gems tonight.
But like, right? That's not an NBA basketball player. But something in that guy's DNA allows him to come into a playoff game and not be flustered, right? And feed off his superstar to a point that makes him an impact player in a basketball game, in the playoffs, on the road. So it's just like, I really hope that the Sixers, and this is a tough thing with Daryl, who's he's such an egotistical asshole, right? Never thinks he's wrong, always thinks he wins the trade. And it's tough when you have an ego like that to sort of think differently. But I hope that Joel now realizes how he has to pick up his team's level of effort with his leadership. And I hope that the front office can surround him with role players who have the ability to go into a game like that and just say, I don't want this to be this way. And I'm going to do my damnedest to try and stop it. And why can't I think of the man's name who scored like all our points in the second half? What's his name? Oh my God. He's a guard for us.
Not Max. Oh, nope. Shake.
Thank you. Yes, Shake.
Yeah.
He came out in that game and said, I don't want this to happen. And you know what? I'm going to try my ass off to make it not happen. And I know I keep going on rants on this podcast and I'm going to stop, but those are the two biggest like takeaways that I had. And I hope it changes something in this franchise and Joel.
So I think, what was Michael when he won his first title? 28, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Because he had plenty of years to go through the Pistons and Celtics and
And Regz, there is a piece of me, like Joel is 28 now, and there is a piece of me that's like, it's time to go, like, and by a piece of me, I mean all of me. It's time to go. Joel, isn't going to play into his mid-30s.
Yeah.
Like he can't play into his
not
mid-30s.
like this. He's not.
No. And yeah, the injuries impacted him. I mean, tremendously. Like not, I think it impacted his aggression rebound. He's already not a great big man rebounder. Like he's just, he's not he just gets rebounds because of his size. He's not like a great crash the boards. Like I think Bam's a pretty outstanding rebounder.
Yeah.
But he's not like a high effort guy, Joel, and that became even more evident with the face, that it wasn't going to be that way. And they don't have a ton of high effort guys. Maxey's a high effort guy.
Yep.
Thybulle's a high effort guy with little to no skill anywhere else other than defense. Shake is a high effort guy when he gets the minutes. Paul Reed's a high effort guy with his minutes. So they were just crushed by like a team who's high effort all the time.
Yeah.
And, I think Toby has moments of high effort, but then he's a tail between your legs kind of guy too at times. You talked about James already.
Not a high effort guy.
Not a high effort guy. So I guess the question then, and this is probably a bigger conversation, but you've got guys and George Niang gave a lot of effort when he was in games. He's not super athletic, so it's hard to tell he's high effort. But he plays hard. But goodness gracious, I think at this point you have to look at your roster and say, I've got Tyrese Maxey, who's a rising star in this game, and I've got Joel Embiid, who is a star.
Everyone else is on the table.
How do I make this team around that? You still need one more star, like to win in this league, and win. If you're gonna need a guy who can defend. Like I think about the Celtics. That's the team I'm holding them up to right now.
Doesn't have to be a star though.
No, like Marcus Smart's not a star.
No.
But he's gonna. He's gonna defend.
Yes,
and he's
he
gonna
is.
do it at a high level.
High effort guy.
Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are gonna get you buckets. Now today Williams outplayed Giannis in a game 7, which is wild to me.
Yeah,
but it happened.
That series is a whole nother thing. If Milwaukee has Middleton, they win that series in 5.
I'd agree with that. No, I'd agree with that. But we'll see, because now we'll see what happens with the Heat.
But that's not what it is, right?
Two high effort teams. This is my nightmare of a Eastern Conference.
This is going to be like a 75-82 every game.
Yeah. So so I was listening to. You probably saw this floating around online. Pat Beverly had some words about James Harden. Did you see that?
No, I did not see this.
So Pat Beverly said you pay the guy the money and you keep him around because he's still a guy who can do things that most guys in this league can't do.
I have some choice words
Harden,
for Pat Beverly.
Well, one, I have choice words for Pat Beverly. Come play in Philly. That's the type of guy they need. Like, talk about high effort. He's going to get. And you know what? And maybe keeping James around would bring him here because they are friends. And but Harden, after the game and in his press conference, he was asked about coming back, and he talked about how he'll do everything he can. He wants to be back. He will be back, and he'll do whatever he can to make sure that they get the right guys around him. If that means he's going to,
I'm going to give you $12 million a year.
I mean, he's never going to take it, but he's due he's due to $41 million. But if he is willing to take some sort of pay cut to bring the right guys here, great. But they need a closer, man. Like, they need a guy who can close basketball games. I'll say this. I saw a rumor floating around today, and I would absolutely love it. And we'll end this. Let me start here. I'm glad that they got blown out in all 4 of their losses. I am glad for 2 reasons. One, because I couldn't go through another painful 3-bounce shot in a game 7. Like, I couldn't do that again. I couldn't do the Hawks game last year again. So I'm glad it ended this way, because I think it does show this front office, like, we've got to do something differently, from a fan perspective. Like, I'm tired of watching second round exits. Like, it's exhausting. And it's, I didn't go through years of losing to just be a second round playoff team every year.
Yeah.
I didn't go through I didn't go through that torture and being a laughingstock of the league for the idea, for the losses, for the roster. I didn't go through it for that. This fan base deserves more, and I hope that Daryl Morey takes a good hard look at what was out on the court these last few weeks. I was getting their doors blown off every other night.
You want to know the best thing I heard?
What's that?
Bill Simmons said sign and trade Harden for Bradley Beal.
Dude, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's exactly what I was going to say because that's who Joel wanted.
Give me that all day, every day.
If you can do that, if that's something that could happen, something that could actually occur, something that both parties have interest in, there's no reason that you shouldn't do it.
Nope.
I mean, look, Bradley Beal is not going to play defense, but Harden didn't play defense.
Nope.
And Bradley Beal is going to score the hell out of the basketball.
Yeah, he is.
They still need to figure out what they're going to do defensively because Danny Green probably won't be back. Matisse Thybulle is just an empty. He's an abyss of offense.
Well, this is where this guy has to show that he can improve.
Yeah. Right? Well, and it's where the president of basketball operations needs to show that he can accept being wrong.
Right.
And is going to go do the right thing. They have the backup center in Paul Reed now, so they don't have to worry about throwing money at that.
Yeah.
They're going to have to figure out wing scoring.
Yep.
And let Tyrese Maxey run the offense.
Yeah, for sure.
Let him run the offense and just let Beal be the two guy and then go get your wing defender. Freaking bring back Robert Covington for all I care. But I just need a guy who can defend. And you know what? I need a stretch four to play next to Joel. Those are the two things that
we need Doc Rivers to be the coach.
For. Well, hopefully those Laker rumors keep floating around.
He can't come back. That can't be a real thing, right?
Here's the thing: the guy sitting next to him is the guy I want to be the next head coach of the Sixers. So I hope he does leave, and I hope Sam Cassell gets that job because I do think that Yep, there have been a couple of guys who have gone elsewhere after sitting as an assistant on this team and have continued to have success, and here we are.
Yep.
So tired of the retreads. In Philadelphia, we have way too many. We have one on the baseball team, which we're about to talk about. Anything that you want to add to the Sixers? Just disappointing all around.
Yeah. Again, it's difficult to lose to a lack of effort. If again, the Kawhi shot I bring back, it's not a fun memory. But when
because I think they get to the
NBA
finals.
When you lose to something like that, you can at least be like, okay, like an act of some supernatural being had to beat us.
Yeah.
And it's not fun, but at least it feels better than, oh, my team just didn't try. And we didn't try those last two games. They didn't try. And so that sucks.
It is hard to accept, but
yes.
we're going to we have a nice lengthy offseason to deal with it.
Yes, we do.
I'm anxious to see. It looks like the Sixers could end up with a first-round draft pick because I think the Nets are going to defer their pick to 2023.
Okay.
So the Sixers could end up with a first-round pick, but honestly, it's going to be in the 20s again. And we got lucky once with Maxey. It's hard to get lucky twice.
But here's where you get your maybe another wing defender, maybe just a high-effort guy, right?
Yeah.
Who has some of the skills to turn into a good offensive player.
Yeah.
Here's where you can fill in those little gaps. You know, you're not looking for a stud, so just take that out of your mind. But what players are on the board that can fill our gaps?
Yep. Hopefully, and you know, it's same thing in free agency. It's the same thing in free agency. All right, let's jump over to the Phils here.
Let's jump over.
We'll set up for a lengthier Sixers episode
of course.
in the coming weeks.
Absolutely.
Maybe heading into the draft, something like that. We'll jump in. All right, so going into this West Coast trip, I was pretty convinced they were going to come out of this 1-6.
Yeah. Well, I think I would have said 2-5.
I was convinced they were going to take one from Seattle, and just based off the pitching matchups alone, lose all four in LA. Now, that being said, they win 2 out of 3 in Seattle. And I at that point I said, "Oh my gosh, if they split in LA, a 4-3 road trip is a miracle."
Yeah.
An absolute miracle. And I will take it and shut my mouth and move on. And then they win the first 3 in LA.
On just some wild games.
Oh yeah, absolutely wild games. I mean, games that individually could have their own podcast to recap.
Yeah.
Let me just summarize those games for you. I can do it in 2 words. Bryce Harper.
Yeah. I was hoping you were going to say that.
I mean, this dude just won't let them lose. And look, someone texted me today, why is Bryce not in the lineup? And I had to think about it. And I'm lucky that my buddy Adam reminded me beforehand, because I probably would have gone
right.
Off. But he got that.
He got the P whatever
the plasma.
Shot. Yeah,
he got the plasma injection in his elbow today. So I can't blame Girardi for that, obviously. And he won't play on Tuesday night either, which is fine. I mean, the rest of the lineup's starting to come around a little bit, but. So just for fun, did you see the Jason Stark tweet?
No.
All right.
Why am I missing all these, by the way?
No, this is great, though. This is great. Visiting players with a home run and at least 2 extra base hits in 3 straight games at Dodger Stadium. Bryce Harper, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's the wrap on the list. Only Dodger ever to do it in a single season, Adrian Gonzalez, first 3 games of the 2015 season.
Great tweet.
Like, 2 players ever. I mean, Bryce. It was a bad time for him to have to get this shot, because Bryce is starting.
Tough. Yeah,
he's starting to turn it up. Now 3 days off. Hopefully he doesn't.
Right.
But the ball is starting to look like what I deem to be like a beach ball to him right now. Like, he is just mashing.
Yeah.
The swing looks better. Everything's working for him right now. The timing is there.
Yep.
And that's big for them. But so I'm gonna go somewhere that you're not, like, you're just not gonna expect from me. Only the freaking Phillies, Regz. Only this team can make 5-2 seem like it's 2-5.
So we talked about this before we came on, right before we pressed the record button. And I admitted to you that I was at my mother-in-law's house being, Mr. IT guy to fix a bunch of internet problems.
That's you.
Yep. And also watching the game. So, Corey gets the first 2 outs. I go do something. I come back. It's 1st and 3rd. And I'm like, damn it. Like, of course this is happening. And I watch the final at bat. And of course it happens. And then I'm pissed. And then I had to think, if you had told me we would take 3 out of 4 in Dodger Stadium with how this team was playing a week ago, like, how quickly can I sign my name to that contract? And you're right. I took 5 minutes to be mad because, again, a sweep of that team is like an unbelievable achievement. With Freddie Freeman, the Philly killer, and Mookie Betts probably still the best player in the National League. And their pitching staff and all those things. And so I am going glass half full on this podcast, Azzy. We are flipping the script. Mr. Pessimistic is going glass half full. I am thrilled to take 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers. We could have given any of those last 3 games away. And if you had asked me, this Phillies team probably should have given them all away to give up the home run to Turner right in the bottom of the 9th. When has this team ever come back from something like that in the past couple of years? Again, to score some runs in the 10th or the 9th or the 8th to put us ahead and then hold it. I'm going to take my 3 wins against the Dodgers and I'm going to say, thank you very much, Los Angeles. I will be back some other time. And I'm going to walk away smiling because it was an unbelievable 4 games. We should have had all 4. We didn't get it, but I am going to be perfectly happy with 3-1. You do me now. You do me. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if I were,
come on, fine
2
is
and
not
5,
the right word.
2 and 5 was what I expected. 1 and 6 was really what I expected. 2 and 5 would have been okay, cool. 5 and 2 is great, but like, and yes, yes, 100%. We should be very happy coming out of this. But it's exactly why I've jumped over to the side of like, I'm not buying this team. Because like, this is a team who cannot build off its own momentum. It's been that way for the last 3 seasons.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they just refuse to take it. And dude, a chance to go over 500 today. A chance to pick up a game on every other team in the division.
That one hurts.
Every team lost.
That one hurts. Touche.
Every team lost today.
Touche on that one. All right.
You score 4 runs in the second inning and just shut down.
But
Odubel Herrera swung at a ball between his legs today with the bases loaded in a 2-1 count. If he doesn't swing at a ball between his legs, you're 3-1 with the bases loaded. 3-1 with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
At that point, you know you're not winning that game, and those are the things that this team does or doesn't do.
No Bryce Harper, though.
Okay. Right. That's fine.
Did we ever expect this bullpen to be good?
But you also wasted another Aaron Nola start.
Yeah, that sucks also. He's kind of, he's put me in my place.
They're 1-7 in his starts this year.
Yes. Yes, they are.
And more than half of them have been very good.
They have been very good.
I went 7 against arguably the best lineup in baseball, and like they played everyone today.
Yes.
It's just, again, I'm sounding like
me.
I'm not appreciative of the fact that they just took 3 or 4 in LA. I'm very happy they took 3 or 4 in LA. But it's the exact reason why I said to my brother today, I said to Adam today, like I said to all these people today, I'm not buying them until they don't, like, I'd much rather have had them just like lose normally today. Like just lose, right? Like lose a game, 5-3 where like you just never get it all together.
Yeah.
Like, but to blow the chances they blew, Girardi's still like, Girardi's going to look at that 8th inning. Did you see the 8th inning by chance?
Yes.
So he's going to look at that inning and think it's fine.
No, he already did. Did you see what's her name's tweet? She asked the question. Alex Coffey, who's doing the beat for the Inquirer.
Yeah.
Asked him the question. Like,
what do you say?
Hold on. I'm looking it up. Give me a sec. Hold, please.
Okay. It's going to make me feel even worse.
Girardi said Dominguez was off today. Here was his logic for using Familia. If I brought in a left-hander, I thought they would pinch hit for Lux. Familia, he's a guy who's pitched at the back end. Brad's been used a lot. Alvarado's been used a lot, so I did it.
Okay.
That's your manager, ladies and gentlemen. So I did it.
So here's my argument. My counter argument for you, Joe. Familia's already blown a game in this series.
Yeah.
Right?
That's all I thought when I saw him in the 8th inning. I was like, well, here goes our lead.
And the other part of it is, that Familia has control issues. So what do you do when you know there's a guy with control issues? Whenever you bring him into a game, there should be someone else warming alongside of him.
Always.
So that way, if you can see he doesn't have his stuff, he's out of the game. And Girardi absolutely refuses to take a guy out. It is always their inning. And here's the thing. You can look at it and say, oh, well, you got out of it. It's fine. Dude, Trey Turner hit a ball 192 miles an hour right at Camargo. If that ball is a foot to his left or to his right, it's in left field.
And Gene still had to make a really good play on that other ball, on the ball that got him out of it. Like that's not an easy play. That was not a gimme out. It
wasn't a good inning. Like it just wasn't a good inning, and Girardi's going to be able to write it off as one. And it wasn't a good inning.
No, it wasn't.
The ninth inning, I think.
So so before you get into that, how do we feel about Corey Knebel right now?
I'm good with Knebel. Like I like guys are going to blow saves, and like certainly, the Dodgers aren't a lineup where we're just going to be able to
run through them every ninth inning, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Gavin Lux hits ninth for them.
Yeah,
like it's just like stop. Like their lineup is just never ending. There's no breather in that lineup, top to bottom. So yeah, Knebel's had a couple of games, but I just feel like everybody needs to chill out on the the Bradledge, like
no, right. We need 6 that type is of, not bad.
No, and his 2 blown saves, one he came into the game in the middle of an inning, which was a disaster.
Yeah.
And the other one was today against a really good Dodger lineup.
Yeah.
And I was just
the
about
best lineup in the National League.
In baseball, arguably.
Yeah,
like I don't
sure.
I mean, maybe the Yankees. Like I'd have to take a look at
a
harder look at it. But I think, today, I like Stubbs a lot as a backup catcher. He's really fine.
I was going to ask you this. Do we think if JT's back there, is there a difference?
Well, I don't know that there's a difference. I think that the pitch call on the 1-2 count to Bellinger is questionable.
So
and he missed a spot by like a foot and a half.
Corey talked about this also, and Alex Coffey had that quote. We're going to look it up for our friends.
All right. Thank you. This is crazy that these are things that I thought of.
I missed my spot with Bellinger. I had the advantage and needed to go up and away there. I pulled it up and in right into his bat.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm glad that that's what I still don't know that I'd go fastball 1-2.
So that's what MLB Tonight was saying, because they showed the last couple innings on MLB and MLB Network.
Yeah, I probably would have buried a curveball.
That's what they said. He had missed the curveball, like his timing was off with the curveball.
Yeah,
and that's what they said. He should have gone back to it.
I probably would have buried one in the dirt just to even change his eye level a little bit, and then climbed up and away if you don't get him to chase. But I mean, that is what it is. I don't mind Knebel. I think Knebel's totally fine, and I think a run of guys like Dominguez, Hand, and Knebel still going to win you a lot of games late.
Yeah.
They're certainly going to need another arm out of the bullpen because it's not Familia, it's not Alvarado. Hopefully Brogdon turns it back around. I like the bullpen overall, and I still think that this is a team who can win. But you have a chance to go over 500 for the first time since the beginning of April. You would win your 5th game in a row, and pick up a game on every single other team in the division lost. You had a 4-0 lead. And again, this is a really good baseball team that you would have gone on the road and swept. And this is why it's hard to buy this team, because they don't take advantage of momentum that they build for themselves.
Yeah.
And now they go home and they play a really tough schedule. Let me just read off where they're at right now. So they have the day off tomorrow, which is great. But then they have 6 games against San Diego and the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And you don't think the Dodgers are going to come in looking for a little bit of revenge?
Yeah. They are.
And then it doesn't get easier. They have 4 against Atlanta and 3 against New York on the road.
Yeah.
Before coming back home to play San Francisco to finish out the month. And it's still difficult after that. 3 with Anaheim and 3 more with Milwaukee. So, you've got a run here. You got to hope that they continue to play that they play. A 3-3 homestand would be fine. You hope you win both series and go 4-2. But San Diego's playing good baseball. The Dodgers are going to be looking for revenge. And then you've got a really difficult divisional stretch with Atlanta and New York. And I've said it a million times, and the only way that I will believe in this team is if they get out of May they get out of May, if they finish these next 2.5 weeks of the month of May, and they're 5 games or less out of the division, I will believe. Right now they're 5.5. They should be 4.5.
Yeah.
But they pissed it away today. And that's
did.
why it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe in them.
It is. I am going to continue to go with no Bryce Harper today. The offense was clearly different. And I'm going to be happy that Nola pitched well again. And I'm going to go with the fact that we probably should have blown 2 of those games that we won. And we almost did. I mean, Familia tried his best, but somehow we still won it.
Well, they have a to-be-determined starter for the first game against
Freddie Freeman's
San
going to
Diego.
bat 700 in that game in Citizens Bank Park, by the way, in that series.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be
great.
11 for 17 and just bat a million.
So I think, next time we'll talk will be Thursday evening. They'll have finished their series with San Diego because they have a 105.
That'll be a good indication. I think you have to go into that Dodgers series probably expecting to go 1-2. You can't expect to win every series against this Dodgers team. They're just better than us. Just flat out. They're just a better baseball team.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they are. They definitely are.
If we can take 2 out of 3 against San Diego, I think that really is a big deal to come off these 4 games, and especially to not have Bryce again on Tuesday. I think if you can still win a series against San Diego, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for the momentum of this team.
Yeah. So they will see in this series. I'm just pulling up the pitching matchups here really quickly. So they'll see Mike Clevenger on Tuesday. We don't know who's pitching for us. Then they'll see Ian Snell. Wonderful. And then they'll see Yu Darvish. So great.
You usually pitches well against us, doesn't he?
Yeah, and that's the Sunday, or that's the Thursday afternoon game. The hope is, you get these. I don't know if San Diego was home these last couple of days or if they're already traveling. I'm just looking real quickly. I want to know. Actually, I don't see them. Who'd they play? The Padres. Oh, they were already on the road, so they've been out east already this week, which isn't great. It's not great, because you want them to come over here and have to play for their first. You know what I mean? You want them to be playing their first series. Right. I think LA is pretty similar. Oh, LA is going to be out west to start the week.
All right,
so that's good.
They'll be over for that series.
They'll be flying out to play us on. They're off on Thursday, so they'll be flying out on either Wednesday night or Thursday to. So hopefully you catch them at least on Friday, somewhat jet lagged. But yeah, I mean, again, I think just to wrap up, there's not. I'm not going to sit here and complain about a 5-2 road trip. That's not what I'm trying to do, and I want to be very clear. All I'm saying is. It's games like today that make it really difficult for us to believe in them. It's one thing to lose a game. It's a whole nother thing to lose a game in the fashion that they lost it today, where the offense kind of tucked it away and they've, we're good. 4 runs in the second. We'll just coast. Some bad at bats and big spots from some of these guys.
Yeah.
And just some questionable managing that didn't end up biting them, fortunately. And, just some late inning stuff that, I don't blame Knebel. I don't blame Stubbs. I think, if he missed a spot and he's willing to own that, cool. But 6 out of 8 that's fine. And, you figure that he'll probably live somewhere in there with, 4 or 5 blown saves throughout the year, which is pretty normal. I think the thing you have to hope is that you don't lose all those blown saves. Because that's the trend that the Phillies have gotten themselves into over the last few years. It's, if he blows a save, hopefully it's a tie game and you win that game later. Right. Kind of like they did with the Familia blown save earlier in the series.
Yeah. I think that the fact that we could come back in late innings and score some runs in extras, in the top of a 9th inning to regain a lead was a big deal because I don't think a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, you would have said this offense was capable of that.
Right.
And
right.
God bless Bryce Harper.
That's it.
MV3.
And he's going for it again. I mean, hopefully he can get back in the outfield here soon. Hopefully this injection helps and we can get him back in the outfield. I think, obviously thank God the DH exists. Because we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Jesus, it would be bad right now.
If it didn't exist. So all right. So good for a quick fixated here?
Hit me with it.
All right. Sounds like the Sixers didn't suffer the most embarrassing. And
this Suns game is rough right now.
Yeah. Ooh. Is Chris Paul going to get his criticized James Harden his?
He should.
I mean, I'm not saying whether he should or shouldn't. I don't think I know.
This team should never lose to the Mavericks. Point full stop.
But yeah, it's crazy. Okay. So, yeah, I'm kind of going to do almost the same thing I did last time, just with a little bit of a twist. It's the Joel Embiid fixated. And this one's just about the MVP. I actually texted you as soon as, it was unofficially announced that Jokic was winning the MVP once again. And I just want to be very outward right off the bat that I think Nikola Jokic is a great basketball player. Like he truly is a great basketball player. One of the more underappreciated players just because of that West Coast piece of his game, right? Like a lot of people don't know what he brings to the table because of that. So for me, he's not a Brandon Nimmo. I hate this guy. I can't stand him. And I'm not going that route with Jokic. I just realized I didn't say his name, so I had to get him in.
Good for you.
For me, thank you. For me, this is all about. This is just an NBA problem. Jokic is great, and I'm not questioning it, but I don't feel like he's the type of guy who should win back-to-back MVPs. I think, the reasoning that I heard was his defensive VORP and, all these statistics. Well, then tell me this. Why wasn't he on the floor in the fourth quarter for defensive reasons when his team went small? Or when the opposing team went small? He couldn't be on the floor because he couldn't guard 1-5. If we're going to say that's the difference between Joel and Jokic, then I hope those people who voted for Jokic watched the games where Joel had a broken face, a torn ligament in his finger, but was out there guarding ones on the perimeter and shutting them down. He didn't have to be pulled for small lineups. Now, were there times he got exposed? Absolutely. The Heat did a great job of at certain times exposing him, but he made adjustments. I mean, he made adjustments and wasn't the reason they lost. Let's put it that way. But he was clearly the reason they lost when he wasn't on the court. And he was clearly the reason that they won when he was on the court. And I'm not quite sure that there's a better way to define most valuable player than when you're not on the floor, your team really struggles. And when you are on the floor, your team's at its best. For most of this season, Joel Embiid had to endure a player who was on the roster that wouldn't show up to the complex or to the court. Out of choice. Jokic had to overcome two of his teammates not playing due to injury during the playoffs. And I think a little bit of the end of the regular season, if I'm correct. During the regular season, Joel Embiid had to overcome the transition of old guys that he liked playing with, Seth Curry, out of the lineup to new guys that he assumingly didn't want, James Harden. He had to lead a team. He had to find a way to keep a team afloat through drama, through missing a big piece of their puzzle. led them to the 4 seed, which, isn't great, but considering that roster, he's the first center to lead the NBA in scoring, a league that is now prolifically guard dominated since Shaquille O'Neal. And again, I know this isn't a postseason award, but carried his team through a first round tough series with torn ligaments in his shooting hand, and then came back after a concussion and a broken orbital bone. And he was absolutely impacted by all of those injuries. The shot was abysmal from everywhere mid-range out. He was definitely slower. I don't know what it's going to take for Joel Embiid to win an MVP. And he was asked about that after game 5, I believe. It was right after it was announced and they lost. And he said, he's like, look, for me, it's a lose-lose. He talked about how if he doesn't play with all these injuries, he's not being there for his team. And if he does play and he's not good, then he stinks and everybody else was right. So it's a lose-lose for him. And he's 100% correct. Regz, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but like, I truly feel like the league does not want to reward the Sixers, the process Sixers. And awarding Joel Embiid the MVP would be awarding the Sixers something for the process. And I mean, his nickname is the process. So, I think back to Ben, and I've criticized Ben up and down for many different things. One thing that I've always credited him for is his defense. And that dude deserved a Defensive Player of the Year award, at least one of the last two prior years. And both years they went to Rudy Gobert. And I stick to this argument in that sense too. The NBA does not want to reward the process Sixers. I don't think Joel will ever win an MVP. Because if he couldn't win it this year, Jokic wasn't that much better than him. That he won by the amount of votes, first place votes that he won by. Like, I'd have to look back, but I feel like Joel, like, I think Jokic almost tripled the first place votes that Joel had. That's insane. Like, that should never happen. Joel was not that much worse than Nikola Jokic was this year. Like, it wasn't this far apart. So, again, I just don't think we're ever going to see Joel win an MVP, and I think that stinks. We watched the GM of the process get removed, and they put in a family, legacy, NBA family legacy, and Colangelo, and we saw how that worked out. That's another thing Joel survived in his tenure is the GM who tweeted about him on burner accounts. This guy deserves some sort of trophy, whether it's an NBA title or an NBA MVP. He won't get it, unfortunately, because I think the odds are just too stacked against him. But I guess congrats to Nikola Jokic, back-to-back MVP award winner, joining the ranks of some really special players that I just don't see him in the same stratosphere as. But I mean, I don't know. So I'm kind of fixated on that. It's a little more passive of a fixated night, not as much passion, because it's just disappointment, man. It's just, I don't know what the guy's got to do. He's a special player. He's a once in a generation type player. There's no one that has a handle, the defensive ability, the offensive ability, and just the pure entertainment value that Joel Embiid has. And unfortunately, he's not rewarded for that. So that's where I'm at tonight.
I agree. Is all that I'll say.
So, all right, everybody. Well, we appreciate you listening tonight, and we're gonna hop off here and probably spend the next hour talking about the Summit podcast. But make sure that when you're done listening here, you click subscribe on the YouTube channel below us. You follow us on all your podcast platforms. at the Phixated Pod. You can follow at Birdies and Beer Podcast on Twitter. You can follow at the Phixated Pod on Twitter as well. You can follow me at the Mic Drop 5. Definitely haven't been live tweeting as many Phillies games recently due to the West Coast swing. As much as I tried to stay awake through those games, I would continue to fall asleep, and I did my best. I just couldn't do it. So now that they're back east, you'll get a heavier dose of my thoughts during the game, good and bad. But we thank you for listening, as we always do. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode, and like we said, we'll get a pretty Sixers heavy episode here in the coming weeks. And then for your summer, you're going to be getting a heavy dose of just Phillies talk from there. So as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, the Phixated fan page on Facebook, and also subscribe on YouTube. And we'll catch you next week. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night or day or wherever you're listening.
Oh, my God. Deep to right field. Way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.